What we do is take an organization all the way through the process without need for any other professionals. But we are able to source the company, do the valuation, do the due diligence, and take it to close, get the financing. We do the whole thing. We bring what I think is a complete end-to-end solution as opposed to a partial solution with multiple providers.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Dino Lucarelli, founder and managing director at Capital Tactics. Dino, how are you today?
Great, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Appreciate you spending some time with us on Business Ninjas. Please tell us a bit about yourself and about Capital Tactics.
Well, I'm not a very interesting person, but Capital Tactics certainly is. Been fortunate to have received a really very good financial education through my collegiate efforts. And in my work environment, I have achieved CPA certification and worked in some large firms. But I launched Capital Tactics 20 years ago to service small and mid-sized businesses and business owners who are looking to grow their business or buy a business or sell a business. Our services include things like doing business valuation, doing due diligence on scrubbing the books for acquisitions, raising capital to acquire companies, and being the right arm to the CEO of our company clients.
Excellent. And what you said, small to medium-sized business, particular niche verticals that you service, industries that tend to work best with you?
I would say companies with revenues in the $5 to $50 million range. We try to work with companies that probably have a financial person, but don't have necessarily multiple redundant finance executives on their team who would reach out to us and want our services. Larger companies oftentimes have certain people in their organization who can do some of the things that we can do. So we decided to reach out to the smaller business owners who probably have a financial person, but not necessarily any redundancy or any specific valuation expertise or any experience in buying and selling companies, where we can come in and charge a reasonable fee, but give them high value, high return on their investment.
Do I assume correctly that when a company is looking to acquire another company, a third-party assessment is a little more validating to them than their internal people? Is there a mandate for a third-party assessment in that scenario?
Generally, yes, there is a mandate, because most people are not buying companies with straight cash. People are going out and borrowing money from lenders. And so the banks want to see information that validates the amount that they're lending, just like a house, loan to value. So what we do is give our businesses, business owners, and clients the information they need, so we can tell them, yes, this is a $7.5 million company. This is a $20 million company. And if we go to bank financing, this is what the bank's going to do. And this is how the structure will look. So that what we try to do is take the surprises out of the equation for our business owners. Oftentimes people think that banks will lend 100 cents on the dollar, or that banks will only lend X. And what we do is, because we have such experience in these matters, we can level set that and calm the fears and give them a realistic expectation of what we can get done.
Understood. And other than the basic assessment and valuation service that you provide, what are the most common problems you're solving for your clients?
Generally, they just don't know how to prepare their business to take it to market. I use a very simple analogy. If we're having a dinner party, we put out the best china, we put out the best wine glasses, we make sure we polish the silver. So that's the same way you want to be when you sell your company. Every company has challenges. Every company has issues that they wish they could fix. But at a minimum, you need to have a very strong financial library. Your financial data has to be very crisp, very verifiable, easy to access, and has to show consistency of earnings. Now, if it doesn't show consistency of earnings, then there needs to be a very strong backstory to explain why a buyer should have comfort about the company's stability. And so we look at the financial information, make sure the financial library is there. We want to make sure the organization has the right people on it. So oftentimes we'll find that an important executive position is open. We often would suggest to our business owners, sellers, that they fill that position prior to going to market. Because if we have some large issues in our org chart, we're expecting the buyer who's new to the company to put the person in that chair, whereas the people that know the business well would be better equipped. So we look at the organization. We look at the technology infrastructure. Is the company operating in 2025 technology? And if not, what are the economies that we can gain by going to a more robust IT environment? And so that's important to look at.
Absolutely. Well, again, perception and valuation is everything. Do you find yourselves in situations where the new trend towards, let's say, fractional CFOs and things like that come in handy when you find a company that isn't necessarily have all the right pieces in place before acquisition?
That's a really curious question, and there's a double-edged sword there. Oftentimes, companies aren't large enough to afford a full-time CFO. And so what they will do is turn to the term that you used, I'll use it, the fractional CFO, to assist them. The challenge with that is the buyer probably wants more stability than having to have a fractional CFO or a part-time CFO. So while a fractional CFO can be a stopgap for a short period of time, it is probably not viewed positively by the buying community to rely on that. As a matter of fact, I have a client right now that has a fractional CFO and wants to sell to a private equity firm. And my suggestion is we need a finance person on staff. And otherwise, you're going to get short shrifted on evaluation.
Makes sense. Again, perception of stability is very important in that scenario. Understood. What differentiates you in Capital Tactics? What makes you stand out from your competitors?
What we do is take an organization all the way through the process without need for any other professionals. So the typical merger and acquisition advisory firm will help with sourcing of an opportunity, and they may have some financial ability to give some high-level financial analysis of the company financial position. But we are able to source the company, do the valuation, do the due diligence, and take it to close, get the financing. We do the whole thing. And that streamlines the process. And also it takes a lot of the guesswork out, because handoffs between the typical M&A advisor and the third-party accounting firm doing the due diligence or the valuation, those handoffs can take time, cost money, and sometimes things get lost in translation. So when I launched the firm 22 years ago, I had a very strong conviction that we would do the whole thing. And I'm a CPA, I've been a CPA for 35 years. I have CPAs and MBAs on my team. I have taught business valuation for 22 years at a large university, Xavier University here in Cincinnati. So we bring what I think is a complete end-to-end solution as opposed to a partial solution with multiple providers.
I would assume that end-to-end service is critical because time, the longer it goes, there's fluctuations in interest rates. There's so many potentials to either sink or change the landed cost of deals of that magnitude.
You hit on the most important issue in our business. Time is the biggest enemy that we face in doing deals. Because once you've established a framework for a deal, the sellers want to go and the buyers want to get started. And the longer that goes on, the more likely it is that something pops up in the middle of the deal that changes the dynamic or kills the deal altogether. And so we believe time is of the essence. And in that respect, our model creates an acceleration of the process so that we don't have to wait for a tax advisor to weigh in. I have tax expertise. We don't have to wait for a financial due diligence team to scrub the books and give an opinion of generally accepted accounting principles. We have that expertise on staff. We don't have to go through a third-party evaluation team and have them give us a number. we don't have to worry about a bank not responding. We go out to the banks. We put the capital stack together so that we are truly a one-stop shop. The only thing you need in addition to us is your attorney to make sure that the legalese is wrapped around the deal. But in our go-to-market strategy, I think we're much more efficient. I think we're much more timely, and I think we're much more complete because we don't hand off to a third party. We hand off to ourselves individually, and we always have a team on each deal.
Excellent. Hey, in sales, they always say that time is the killer of all deals, and you're talking about sales of a large magnitude. So that makes sense to me. Switch gears for a minute. Tell me about the pandemic years and the challenges and opportunities of sustaining your business through the pandemic. I mean, I know there were lots of M&A activity going on as companies struggled to survive and needed to become acquired just to survive the pandemic. Tell me about that time for Capital Tactics. Excuse me.
So it was a very difficult time. I would equate from our perspective, our business targets and our client targets are successful businesses and successful buyers who want to be more successful. So we're all about growth. During the pandemic, it was almost as if the movie stopped and people were frozen because many buyers were concerned coming out of COVID, what was going to happen. We didn't know how the length or duration. The supply chain for many manufacturing companies was shut down, and many companies had to survive on the PPP money, which was a smart move. Absent that money, many businesses would have failed, many more than did fail. And coming out of it, there's still a significant lingering problem in that many manufacturers in 2021, 22 suffered significant downturns, and buyers are trying to take advantage of that and saying, well, look, you had some really bad years. And our reaction to that is, yes, we had a pandemic, the likes of which we haven't had in 100 years. So let's put it into perspective. What we have to do is bridge the gap between 2017, 18, 19, and 2023, 4, and 5, and show that trough was truly anomalous and was not the trend. But do it through COVID. There were some companies that did very well and were very highly sought, but they weren't selling. And we're talking about home services, residential services, HVAC. So people all of a sudden realized, well, I can no longer work from home because it's freezing in here or it's hot or whatever. So those businesses started doing very, very well, but they weren't going to sell their companies while the sun was shining.
Sure.
So it was COVID generally for the business community was a terrible time. And for the M&A community, it was pretty difficult as well.
Understood. Now, obviously, you've been doing this a long time. You've got a reputation and people know who you are. How are you telling your story? How are people finding you? What role has content played in the growth of Capital Tactics?
So I think we've done an okay job of getting the message out. We're fairly active in the business community in terms of going to meetings with various groups in town. But I think the biggest way that we find customers and customers find us is word of mouth. This business is one where it's such an intimate business where the business owners or buyers have to tell us their entire financial history, the dirty details, the things they probably wouldn't disclose if they didn't have to. We have to understand all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so when we do a deal, there are attorneys on both sides, there are accountants on both sides, there are CEOs on both sides, there are sellers who are departing. And the way the message is most effectively delivered at this point is through word of mouth. But we are launching some additional initiatives. We put some videos out on various sites to talk about our expertise. We host seminars. And when we host a seminar, we have to cut it off at 100 people because we get so many people wanting to hear about what we do. So I think being around for over 20 years, as doing mergers, acquisitions, having completed hundreds of deals, having financed hundreds of deals, we have a lot of professionals in the community who routinely refer work to us. And that's been, up till now, the most productive way to win business.
Well, hey, trust is paramount in your industry. You are both accountant and priest at the end of the day, because nobody opens their books to the degree that is necessary in the equation that you're describing.
It's very true. And earlier in this discussion, Andrew, I talked about having a good financial library. And if there's one challenge that we see more frequently than others, is the failure to have maintained a consistent financial library. What I'm talking about is we want to see financial statements going back 6, 7, 8 years. I want to see the tax returns that match up to that. I want to see some key performance indicators. We want to see a forecast moving forward. We want to see these things. And in the absence of these things, you either will not get a deal done, or a deal will get done at a significantly reduced price. Neither of those is a good thing for our clients. So when we go in and the financial library is not there, let's say we're representing a seller, we'll create the financial library. If we go in and we're looking for a financial library and we're representing the buyer, we'll request that the buyer or the seller prepare the financial library, even if they have to go out to an accounting firm or a third party to put it together. Because at the end of the day, we have to know exactly what we're getting, and we have to know as close to the pin as possible what information is reliable in the books and factual, and what is, I'll say, prospective or forecasted. And in the absence of very good financial data, deals don't get done.
That makes sense. Silly question from a person outside the industry. If there is no financial library, how do you create one at that point?
Well, everybody has a bank. At least all of our clients do.
Yeah.
And so if you have to, and we've had to do this on a rare occasion, we'll go back to the bank statements and we'll look, and the bank statements will show their deposits, which are sales, and the bank statement will show their expenditures, and we can break down the checks and disbursements and ACH payments. If we have to do that, that's it's almost forensic work.
Yeah.
We'll do it if we have to, but candidly, most of the companies with whom we deal are much more sophisticated than that, and we don't have to have that. But what generally we encounter more frequently, and they just don't have financial library, is the library is not consistent. They may not have a complete set of financials by month for the last 36 months that they can prepare. They may have some things that anomalies in their books that are one-off deals where the accounting was not done properly, or they haven't adhered to proper accounting standards. And so we very, very frequently, I would say most of the time, have to prepare what we call an adjusted income statement. And we'll adjust that for things that put things in the right place. So that's a common issue that we encounter. But again, I think part of our go-to-market strategy is we have the accountants to do that. We don't have to wait for a third party. We don't have to go charge somebody else or say, oh, good news is we're going to help you sell your company. Bad news is you're going to have to pay a bunch of accountants more money and tax people to get your books cleaned up. We'll do that.
I kind of find it shocking this far into the 21st century, with so many tools available to small business to do their accounting and keep that sort of those records clean. I find it hard to believe that people don't take care of business.
I am continuously surprised as well. Because I work in the world of financial people, and I've been teaching financial people for 20 plus years. My mind wants to tell me that everybody has the books clean, but my actual experience tells me that even larger companies, 25, 30, 40, $50 million, don't have the consistency of reporting and management. And in fact, we also do some of what you refer to as the fractional CFO work, where we get hired to come in and just do that work. And it's not affiliated with a buy or sell. So right now we're working with a $50 million technology company that's doing quite well from a financial perspective, but their financial accounting practices are not up to speed. So we're implementing more enhanced and better and proper accounting practices for them, so that if they need to go out for additional financing, or if we decide to go on an acquisition trail, that we have the backdrop of information that would be considered appropriate and pristine to the lending community.
I find it ironic that a tech company wouldn't have the tech in place for all of that to be automated in the first place.
It is the whole thing of the cobbler's kids have no shoes.
Yep. Gotcha. All right. Look down the road a year from now. What are some things you'd like to be celebrating personally and professionally?
Well, personally, we're expecting another grandchild, so
congratulations.
looking forward to that. My son and his wife have 6. Number 7 is on the way, so we're
wow. I'm going to interrupt you to say it's a good thing that there's somebody who can help with financial planning in the family when you have 7 kids.
That's right. So there's that. From a professional perspective, we have some training going on with our team to enhance the skill sets and to create a larger team. Right now, we probably have as much work as we can take on, so we're in the hiring mode to bring in the right people and the right talent. I just think it keeps getting bigger and better for us, and that's the good news. The work is difficult because there's so many elements that things can go wrong or things go off the rail or things need to be controlled in a more effective manner. But having the right team in place has been one of the things that I've been manic about. And we do have a really great team and it continues to expand. We just brought on a new researcher to help us with our deep dive on companies to buy for our clients. She's super talented. She's done some great work, and a month in, I couldn't be happier with her work. So professionally, I see us continuing to make buyers happy and help sellers harvest appropriate return on their investments. And I don't see an end in sight right now.
Excellent. Excellent. Please tell us, what's your URL? Where can people find Capital Tactics? And what social media outlets are you using as well?
Okay. Capital-tactics.com is our website.
Okay.
We're currently undergoing some upgrades to that. And as far as we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook. And those are the three. LinkedIn is probably where we do most of our campaigning. Obviously, LinkedIn is for business people. And we post knowledge things or white paper type commentary on LinkedIn a lot, and that's been very effective. People want to know, and oftentimes our business is shrouded in mystery in terms of how do you come up with valuation and what's going on in that smoke-filled room. We try to demystify it. And the one thing that I would say that is one of my campaigns is that there are people in our shoes, people who pretend to do what we do, who are discounting companies substantially in order to get deals done. And to me, that's just very disingenuous. It roils me to know that there are people out there that would take advantage of business owners. Business owners, small business owners particularly, are really the lifeblood of our economy. And people who have worked 20, 30, 40 years to build a great business don't deserve to be treated like a commodity. And without getting on my soapbox, I will say this. I see people valuing companies at 3 times earnings. And if somebody tells you your company's worth 3 times earnings, get a second opinion. Their multiples change from industry to industry, from company to company, from year to year. But a 3 times earnings multiple is almost equivalent to a company that's on shaky ground and ready to go under. That's the kind of company that sells for 3 times earnings, not good, strong companies that are in growth mode.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there is no cookie cutter approach. Every company has a different niche, history, market, valuation, and anybody that puts a single equation into play is not taking into consideration the sweat equity of the people in front of them.
It's absolutely correct. And so we're as transparent as humanly possible in the way we go about our business. So when we're representing a company, if they have challenges, let's say that there's been a recall of some of the product, we talk about it. We face it head on. If there are challenges, and I said earlier, you try to make sure you got a good org chart. But if we have an opening on the org chart and the seller just says, I just have to go to market now, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how that's a difficult situation, and we'll target companies that are willing to work with us on those things. So it just comes down to being professional, being transparent, and transparency is perhaps the most valued trait from our community. Is just tell me what I should know. I can make the right decision. We can adjust the price. We can adjust the terms. But if you don't tell me, I have to find out on my own. Now we have a trust issue. We probably don't have a deal.
I repeat, I said it earlier, trust is paramount in your industry. I don't think people open their books at the level you're describing in any other scenario, except maybe an audit, which is not something they're looking forward to either.
Well, even then in an audit, you're not going to get the straight narrative necessarily from business owners, and people get audited. You give what it's asked for and not an inch more. But yeah, we become good friends with our clients. We have to know them, just like you asked about my family. We have to know what their personal aspirations are, their personal financial goals, their professional goals, and we have to know what their hot buttons are. And if we don't know those things, then we're not doing our job.
Dino Lucarelli, thank you for spending some time with us on Business Ninjas. All the best to you and your growing brood, and continued success at Capital Tactics.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Have a nice day.
My pleasure. Be well.